Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for this press conference after our October formal European Council. With us tonight, we have the President of the European Council, Mr. António Costa, and the President of the European Commission, Madame von der Leyen. Without further ado, I will give the floor to President Costa. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. Earlier this month, after our informal meeting in Copenhagen, I said that today would be decision time, and we deliver on all fronts. And I would like to start to thank Ursula von der Leyen and the Commission for the excellent cooperation once again in the preparation of this European Council. Starting with Ukraine, we have said many times that we will support Ukraine as much as necessary for as long as it takes. Today, we reached three important agreements. First, European leaders committed to ensure that Ukraine's financial needs will be covered for the next 2 years. We have asked the Commission to put forward options as soon as possible, so that Ukraine has the resources it needs to continue defending itself and fight for a just and lasting peace in 2026 and 2027 if it's necessary. Russia should take good note of this. Ukraine will have the financial resources it needs to defend itself against Russia's aggression and in the foreseeable future. Now, the technical, legal and financial aspects of Europe's support need to be worked on, and we will return to this issue in the December European Council. Second, we adopted the 19th sanctions package, which will increase our pressure on Russia and further damage its war machine. Third, Member States agreed to strengthen measures and coordinate actions to disrupt Russia's shadow fleet. To sum up, we continue to use all means at our disposal to put Ukraine in a position of strength if and when negotiations with Putin start. We hope this moment comes soon, but no matter the circumstances, our message is clear. Europe will not let Ukraine down. Second area where the European Council delivered today, defence. Today we have closed a cycle that we opened last February when I convened a brainstorming devoted to this topic. In less than a year, working closely with the European Commission, we outline the foundations for the Europe of defence. We define our priorities, capabilities. We approved new financial tools to develop these capabilities, and in full coherence with NATO. Our priorities now are clear, starting with anti-drone and air defence, and looking naturally priority to the eastern flank. Our timelines as well. Step 1 will be finalized by the end of this year, the capability coalitions that will drive these projects forward. Step 2 will be to launch and advance on concrete projects in early 2026. Member States will be in the driving seat to push our joint efforts forward with a bigger role for the Ministers of Defence and the European Defence Agency. Europe's defence is not just about spending more. It's about spending smarter, working together and delivering for our citizens. This is how we build Europe's sovereignty and the roadmap on defence readiness that the European Commission and the High Representative presented today was a decisive building block for that. Third, competitiveness and climate. Europe is at the forefront of climate action, turning this challenge into economic opportunities, positioning itself as a leader in the technologies of the future. Today, we reaffirmed our commitment to the Paris Agreement and also agreed that we need to be pragmatic and flexible in our strategy to make sure that Europe's climate ambitions and the competitiveness of our economy, of our industries, go hand in hand and leave no one behind. Looking ahead to 2040, we are setting a clear and realistic path to achieve our climate targets by making sure our transition is just and affordable for citizens and businesses, by supporting the modernization and decarbonization of our industries, by following the principle of technological neutrality to make sure that we achieve our objectives in the most cost-efficient way, and by guaranteeing that the transition contributes to a strong European industrial base. At the same time, we will encourage innovation. We will invest in clean and digital tech, ensuring Europe stays ahead of in the global race. This is what our discussion was about. And I believe that today's meeting, together with Ursula von der Leyen's recent letter, have helped create the right conditions for 2040 EU climate target to now be decided in the Council. As Mario Draghi's report showed us a year ago, Europe needs to become more competitive to secure its future. The clean and digital transition, along with our simplification efforts, which have decided to push forward decisively, we are key parts of our agenda to ensure Europe's international competitiveness. Last but not least, to be stronger externally, we need to be strong internally. And the leaders also need to be focused on the European citizens' daily concerns. Housing affordability and accessibility are among the most pressing concrete issues for millions of Europeans. While in this area competence remain at national, regional and local level, I wanted European leaders to come together and discuss how the European Union can complement and support their efforts. And our debate was very useful and it was concrete. And it has offered political guidance for the preparations of the European Affordable Housing Plan by the European Commission. The European Union institutions are fully engaged in helping address this crisis. We must do everything in our power to tackle it. It is what our citizens expect from us. In conclusion, today the European Council delivered concrete measures on Ukraine, defence, climate and competitiveness, and we open a new cycle for housing policy. And we will keep delivering for our citizens, for our future, and for our place in the world. Thank you very much.
Madam President.
Yeah, thank you very much, dear Antonio. Indeed, we had a very good discussion and we made progress in a number of areas. Let me also start with Ukraine. Indeed, this morning we adopted the 19th sanctions package. It is a wide-ranging and extensive package that hits at the heart of the Russian war economy. And in parallel, the United States is proceeding with its own set of sanctions on Russia. So these are two very welcomed moves at the same time. Because, of course, together with our partners and allies, we have a greater impact. And we will keep up pressure on Russia for as long as it takes, just as we've always said that we will stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes to secure an end to the killing and a just and lasting peace. This was also today our message to President Zelensky. We had a good discussion on the reparations loan to be financed with immobilized Russian assets, and it allowed us to identify points we still need to clarify, and then indeed we will come back with the different options that we will develop. Let me underline again, we will always respect European and international law while we are taking this work forward that we've just described. Now, indeed, our second topic was defence. And we had a very positive discussion today on the roadmap of readiness for Readiness 2030. The roadmap, as you know, identifies the capability gaps we have in the European Union, very closely coordinated with NATO, of course. And the roadmap describes objectives and different milestones and deadlines to reach our goal to fill these capability gaps by 2030. It is a 360 degrees approach, so the principle is very simple. Our security is about protecting our borders. Today it is in the east, but tomorrow it might be in the south. So it is started as a real 360 degree approach. The flagship projects that we have identified are a very clear example for this. They are pan-European. They are cross-cutting in nature, and of course they can be projects of common European interest. You mentioned the Drone Alliance, or for example the Eastern Flank Watch, but also the space defence or the air shield, the European air shield, are typical examples. Now, very important in the discussion was the fact that, as we will have with the roadmap, a surge in defence expenditure, it is for us very important that these defence investments are an engine for growth. In other words, we want a return on investment. It's going to be billions and billions, actually 800 billion, up to 800 billion till 2030. And we want a very clear return on investment by creating jobs here in the European Union and having research and development here in the European Union. So Europe must be responsible for its own defence as a strong transatlantic security and fully aligned with NATO. Moving on to competitiveness and the clean transition. Globally, the clean transition is now full in swing. Clean tech markets around the world are booming. If you look at some figures, the global market for batteries, for example, is expected to double in size over the next 5 years. The global market for wind turbines continues to rise by over 10% every year. And if you look at the developing economies across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, last year the sales of electric cars have risen by 60%. So this is not only good news for the climate, it is also a great economic opportunity. And the discussion was among us whether we want to reap the benefits of this global clean tech boom or just let others profit from it. And of course, the answer is very clear. We are going all into this competition. And there were 3 points that we emphasized in this discussion. The first is we must support more clean products that are made in Europe. This gives us also independence. So we will introduce a Made in Europe criterion for public procurement in some strategic sectors. Overall, if you look at public procurement, it's round about 14% of the European GDP, so an enormous firepower, financial firepower, that is potentially in the hands of governments. The second point is that we must ensure that new foreign investments in our industry are truly in our interest. They must result in jobs and technology transfer here in the European Union. And the third point, that we will step up targeted support for key industries, for example, cars or battery manufacturing. You know that we are working on a battery booster to support production in Europe. or that we are with a new set of initiatives for the automotive sector, working on pushing the automotive sector and developing the cars of the future. And this also includes a new simplification omnibus. Now, we also discussed the climate targets. We are on track for the climate target by 2030. And we have, of course, all agreed a clear target of climate neutrality by 2050. Now, what we have discussed is the interim step 2040 that is ahead of us. We have proposed a 90% target and introduced new flexibilities. And today we saw support for an ambitious and pragmatic approach at the same time. So we also discussed the flexibilities to get to this goal, first in form of international credits, and second through flexibilities between the different economic sectors. So in short, more flexibility on how to reach the target, but to have a pragmatic and ambitious target at the same time. And finally, housing. I'm very grateful to António for putting the crucial issue of housing on our agenda. Thank you very much for that, because housing is and will remain a national competence, but some of the challenges would, of course, benefit from a coordinated European approach. And therefore, still this year, I will put forward a European affordable housing plan. And because we discussed it, we will need a strong European coordination. We will also convene the first EU Housing Summit in 2026. I leave it at that, and thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. The first question goes to Maria Tadeo.
Maria Tadeo for Euronews. You both make it clear that Russia has made a mess in Ukraine and they are going to have to pay for it. But when it comes to the reparation loan, the conclusions make it also clear there are sticking points and the language is softer than expected. So a question for Madam President is, what is the biggest obstacle in your view? How are you going to overcome it? And what is the timeline? Because you allude to December. Is that a deadline for you? This question of the reparation loan should not go into 2026. And then for President Costa, you've always said a veto is not a right, it's a responsibility. So how are you going to bring in the Belgian Prime Minister on board, given that today he seems to have played it pretty tough? Thank you so much.
Yeah, indeed. If you look at the conclusions, they have strong language on our commitment to address Ukraine's needs, including the defense and security needs. So a very clear commitment of the European Council what that is concerned. And there's the invitation to the Commission to come with options. This is a topic that is certainly not trivial. It's very complex. And therefore we discussed it, but it was also very clear that there are points to be clarified and to have a deep dive and to work more on them. So in other words, we agreed on the what, that is the reparations loan. And we have to work on the how we make it possible, what is the best option to move forward.
First, nobody vetoed nothing today. We will discuss and we will take the most important political decision to ensure full financial support to Ukraine to address their financial needs in 2026 and 2027. Different leaders raised technical issues that we need to address. And that's why we invited the Commission to continue to work and to address these technical issues and to come again to the European Council next December to take a final decision. And I can add that during our working dinner with the President of the ECB and with the President of the Eurogroup, we also debated with them these issues. And their messages are very clear. First, the solution proposed by the European Commission respects European law and respects international law. First thing, very important. Second, all the technical issues, it's possible to solve all the technical issues. That means that this solution is feasible. And first and last, the president of the Eurogroup said inclusively that this is the best solution to address and to implement our political decision to ensure full financial support to Ukraine for 2026 and 2027. And this political decision is the most important message to Russia. That means that Ukraine will have the means that they need to continue to fight for a just and lasting peace, for defend themselves for Russian aggression, and Ukraine can continue to count on the European Union to support Ukraine. They are not European fatigue. We are ready to continue to work to support Ukraine.
Thank you. Mark Peperkorn.
Mark Peperkorn, Volkskrant. I want to follow up on this, especially on the how of the reparations loan. When I read the conclusions about the options, I thought this is remarkable. So therefore my first question for both presidents, is there another credible, substantial option to help Ukraine financially apart from using the frozen assets? That's one. Or two, did I misunderstand the conclusions? And do you mean with options only, yes, we will use these assets, but the option is in what way? Thanks.
I think it was very clear in the discussion that if you look at options, it is as at options how to use the immobilized assets. Potentially there are always other options than using the immobilized assets. Therefore, the clear commitment of the European Council to cover the financial needs in the next 2 years, very clearly including the defense and security needs of Ukraine, is the first statement that always has to be there. Then the focus is on the immobilized assets, and here to look at different options. Indeed, I can only underline that the President of the European Central Bank and the President of the Eurogroup both were very clear that they said these are elements to be addressed, but they can be addressed. This was very clear in both their statements. And I think for us also is very important to send the message we're in for long haul. No matter what, we're in for long haul.
As a politician, I know that there are always an alternative. This is what is about politics. And the politics decision is about to take the best decision. And for this, we need to compare pros and cons. And I think the Commission found a very clever, innovative solution. But of course, like all other solutions, have pros and cons. And what a responsible body as the European Council needs to do is to ask for the alternatives, to compare the alternatives. And that's the reason because we asked the Commission to present and to the Council to analyze, and then we come it comes again to the European Council in December to take a final decision.
Okay. Next question to Le Soir.
Thank you. Thank you. Agathe de Clercq for Le Soir. Thank you for the briefing. The Secretary General for the United Nations, António Guterres, said yesterday that overshooting the 1.5 degree target was inevitable. It's something scientists have said, even though it is a bit too early to be sure at the moment. Do you think that the flexibilities that you are proposing will be helping to achieve the Paris Agreement? And the second question I have is, I understand that it is important to find a balance between flexibility and predictability for the climate targets, but the revision clause introduced in the conclusion for the 2040 targets, how do you think it is in this balance? Well, thank you so much.
I'll start. So, first of all, for the general orientation, we have set, cast in law, 2 goals already. It's the 2030 goal for reducing at least minus 55% of CO2 emissions. And as I said, we are clearly on track to reach that goal. I think this is very important because it's the closest time-wise. And then there is the clear obligation by 2050 to be climate neutral. This is also cast in law, agreed by all 27 member states. So there's a broad consensus that we want to be climate neutral by 2050. And now the 2040 goal is on the way towards climate neutrality. And indeed, I mean, this is a huge transition we are undergoing. And it is quite a long time to move forward, quite a long way to go. And therefore, it is important to be very firm on keeping the goal in mind, the 2040 goal, but to be flexible, pragmatic, adaptable on the way forward. And this includes the flexibilities. Flexibilities, of course, in a limited form, what international credits are concerned, but also the flexibility that you can, for example, work or get these CO2 emissions down with working with different sectors. It depends very much on the member state. The 27 member states have different situations, so not one size fits all, but it gives them the possibility to reach the common target while choosing the delivery in the sectors that are the most suitable for that. So what was important for us, stay the course, 2050 climate neutrality. We are well on track by 2030, and now we have to define how we get in the most pragmatic but efficient way to the 2040 goal.
Okay, we have time for one more question. To El País, please.
Thank you very much, Celia Ayuso from El País newspaper. It's on Mercosur because there's nothing on the conclusions on that, but Chancellor Friedrich Merz mentioned that there was a discussion on this and there was an agreement so the Mercosur could be finally signed on December 19th. So I wanted to understand if there's an agreement on that or if you can clarify. Thank you.
Vale. No habemos...
Wait a second.
Yes, we do have translation.
No, you can make confidence.
Always.
No ha habido una discusión sobre eso. He pedido a los líderes que hablen con sus embajadores para resolver problemas técnicos con las traducciones, de modo que podamos aprobar sin firmar el acuerdo en tiempo. Eso es. Nada habíamos decidido, no habíamos discutido. He hecho un pedido a los líderes para que hablen con los embajadores, para que sean proactivos para resolver problemas que tenemos con las traducciones, arreglar esto al tiempo de firmar, cuando lo queremos firmar antes del final del año. Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.